Hey, this is Philip Ellis, and welcome to Drum Building 101. Today I'm going to be talking about how to build an inlay jig for your existing router table, and then how to actually use that jig to cut and install perfect inlay strips for your custom drums. And this section is actually taken just straight out of the How to Make Drums ebook. If you like what you see or like what you hear, check out the full version at makedrums.com. So yeah, you'll be able to cut and install inlay. And these pictures are just a couple of the drums lately that I have cut inlay grooves and then installed inlay using the method that I'm about to teach you. So first of all, you need to make an inlay jig for your existing router table. The way you do that is just take a piece of laminated MDF, cut it to the size, either the width or the length of your existing router table, screw a 2x4 on to the back of it. You're going to want to countersink those screws, and then all you need is clamps to hold it down to your router table. And obviously this is kind of the poor man's version, but it works extremely well for me. I've never had any issues with messing up an inlay groove or anything. Check out that picture, and that's basically your jig setup. So then let's get to the actual cutting of the inlay grooves into shells or into bass drum hoops. What you're going to want to do is mark a straight line all the way across the router table in the center of the router, and for a centered inlay, you're going to take that center line and then measure. Let's say you have a 1.5 inch hoop. You're going to need to measure 0.75 inches away on either direction of that center line. You can have the router bit is going to be going straight up and it's going to be centered. Yeah, so set the fence up zero point 0.7 inches away, and then that will actually be your fence set up for a centered inlay on the bass drum hoop. And it's just the same with any other type of shell. So if you have, let's say, a 6-inch tom that you want to have an inlay on, you're going to set up your fence system to be 3 inches away from the center line, and that will give you a centered inlay on a 6-inch tom. So you basically get the idea. You take the length of the shell, divide it by 2, and measure that distance away from the center line marked on your table. So once you find the center line and mark that all, you're going to need to figure out what type of bit size you're going to want for your inlay strip. There's a lot of different sizes that you can find online. You can even go to your local home improvement store and just look at a bunch of different straight bits and get one of those, put it in your router, and then you can move on to step 4. And this step is actually cutting the inlay groove. I would advise using heavy leather gloves for this part because you don't want to cut your finger off. It's really easy when you're working with tools to get careless, so just make sure that you are looking at your cut at all times. Don't glance away to look at a TV or to look at something that's in the room. Make sure that when your router table, when your bit is spinning, when it's on and going really fast, do not look away from the cut that you're making, because you will mess up and you will hurt yourself. So first, you're going to need to adjust the router so that your first pass doesn't take away a whole lot of wood. You're going to want to cut in increments, very small increments, and then test fit your inlay after each pass. The idea is to make this as flush as possible. Using the jig as a fence, keep the bottom of the shell against the fence at all times and carefully spin it around, always keeping pressure going towards the fence and towards the bit. The slightest movement in any other direction can yield poor results. Also, you don't need your fence to be as tall as the one in the picture. This was before I had actually cut this down, my fence, a little bit. But yeah, you just need your fence to be straight, at the very bottom where you're actually connecting with the router bit. And to actually cut out your inlay strip that you'll be installing, you're going to need to measure the cut that you made on your shell and then mark those measurements on your inlay strip, on your wrap that you're actually going to cut into inlay strips. So use a straight edge to transfer the mark down the wrap so that you have a straight line cut. Cut the inlay out using very sharp scissors. This cut has to be very precise. So go slowly and cut exactly on the line. Once it's cut, you can test fit it all the way around the shell and make sure that there are no spots where the strip is too large or too small. In any case, you would much rather be too large because you can always trim that down with your scissors. So when you're ready to install the strip, use painter's tape to mask off areas of the hoop that you don't want covered in glue, and then you can use contact cement both on the wrap and the hoop, and then allow it to dry for 30 minutes or the manufacturer's suggested dry time, and then firmly stick them together. As you can see, there's the finished product. Looks pretty great. So, I have a special solution for installing smaller inlay strips. I use the Scrapbook Adhesive brand Super High Tack photo tape, and I usually find this at my local scrapbooking store or Hobby Lobby. And that's what I use for smaller inlays. And it has a very strong bond, and it's really easy to work with whenever you're dealing with small inlays, because you don't really want to use contact cement because it's a little bit more messy. So this inlay tape is just really easy to work with. Just apply it to the back of your inlay strip, peel off the dividing wax paper, and then install the inlay in your groove. And this drum's inlay is actually strips of scrapbooking paper. There's some really interesting designs that you might find if you're looking for alternate inlay designs. Yeah, you can use scrapbooking paper. You can also consider using wallpaper to wrap a drum. Really, the possibilities are endless. This drum's inlay came from my local woodcraft store, and they're a really great place to get inlay strips. They have all sorts of different designs and different widths. Yeah, so you can experiment with the stuff they have, and they're actually wooden inlay strips, but this inlay was also installed using the double-sided tape method. And then lastly, this drum's inlay is aged pearl wrap from Drum Supply House, and I installed it using the double-sided tape method also. Just cut it out with scissors and installed it. And then this is the finished product of that drum set. So if you want some more information about building your own custom drum set, visit makedrums.com and sign up to receive free drum building tutorials sent to you through your email. There's a little sign up list on the right hand corner of the website, and I'll hook you up with some free drum building tutorials. Thanks for watching, and happy drum building.